Director of NetSuite Enterprise Services here at GSI, and thank you very, very much for taking some time with us today to go over a little bit about the process for approaching reporting requirements if you're a NetSuite user. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, this webinar is intended for both existing NetSuite customers, so folks that have reporting requirements and are wrestling with some of these concepts day in and day out. But even if you're not a NetSuite user, if you're evaluating NetSuite, for example, this should provide you some really good, valuable, detailed insight into how NetSuite reporting is accomplished and some of the tools that you can utilize to achieve your reporting requirements.
Hey, Sean, we can actually see your screen.
You can? Excellent. Good.
No, we can't.
Oh, we can't? Oh, my apologies.
Okay,
let me know. Thank you. Thank you, Brittany, and sorry to everybody for whatever I was displaying before then. So yeah, we'll, in today's presentation, walk through the NetSuite reporting tool set. And this is just on general terms, talking about some of the stuff that is out there for your utilization and instances where it's a good or bad bet to use it. And then we'll look through a sort of high-level process that you may want to apply to new reporting requirements, just to sort of help you associate the different layers of technology in NetSuite that you may use to address said reporting requirements. And then we'll just give a couple quick examples of some real-world style use cases and how you achieve, basic reporting results inside of the NetSuite architecture and tool set. So let us look then at the NetSuite reporting tool set. So I'm going to start on this slide that is the stairway for financials first. The reason I start here is twofold. One, financials first implementation in NetSuite speak is the most basic sort of core implementation you can make. It is essentially to get a organization's GL onto NetSuite and then to potentially migrate it over time such that other core operations are on it. And so as you watch this, note that this is not a business intelligence specific slide. This is more of an overall implementation methodology, strategy, and sort of results slide that is meant to talk through a potential client's relationship with NetSuite. But I want to call to attention just how interwoven the concept of business intelligence and the value to organizations that run NetSuite are. So as we walk through this, there are phases of organization's NetSuite experience. They get established with the core set of transactional elements. They get some analytics and dashboards. They're managing tax filings. It moves into international expansion. Get into maybe even subscription management, advanced reporting concepts. They're looking at project management, resource allocations, that type of thing. Accelerate they may have inventory. They may be a reseller of goods and services, whatever. Are we going to get into multi-book accounting for multiple tax or financial reporting statutory requirements? And it goes on to dominate. And ultimately, this timeline and this piece of NetSuite marketing is meant to sort of talk an organization through what it anticipates benefiting from when they move to NetSuite. And it's just so important to note that all of this stuff, business insights, order processing efficiency, some of this is being revealed to me, time to close the books. A lot of this has, if not indirect, direct reliance on accurate and timely business intelligence. And that is oftentimes a key sort of value gap that develops in organizations in terms of what NetSuite is capable of promising them, what NetSuite represents potentially as a core ERP system in terms of that organization's ability to manage and improve itself, drive revenue, decrease costs, etc. All of that stuff is ultimately wrapped in your ability to unlock the value of NetSuite via its reporting toolset. Which brings us to a concept that you may have run into before, and it's a concept that is applicable not just to the reporting side of cloud ERP infrastructure, but all of the application set, and that's the cloud solution value gap. And conceptually speaking, what this is meant to indicate is that with time, a client's implemented solution generally stagnates to a certain degree. Oftentimes in cloud ERP implementations, a large subset of the client base does not retain internal NetSuite specific competence. You know, there might be administrators and things like that that, for lack of a better terminology, keep the wheels moving and, you know, keep the lights on, but there is not an intention to develop a comprehensive sort of change management project infrastructure with relation to the software. And that's fine. But what ends up happening is the platform itself, NetSuite's evolving. Every half a year, you're getting a new release with new features and capabilities. Not to mention that the marketplace of integrated applications grows daily. And so the capability that exists out there for your particular industry and solution and vertical, et cetera, it's growing day by day. You know, there are better routes to market, better ways to service the customer, better ways to drive down cost. It's just that a lot of organizations don't make those sort of continual improvements. And make no mistake, there is a divergence between the cloud platform solution and the optimal solution for any organization. Not everybody needs everything. So you'll note that you know, the cloud platform is just going to continually to exponentiate its capabilities, whereas your organization's optimal solution will increase more linear with time. Nonetheless, your ability to unlock that value gap revolves around either your ability to add functionality or to enhance your reporting capabilities and the actionability of the business intelligence that you're receiving in order to make comprehensive business changes. And so this solution value gap is essentially, from a reporting standpoint, what this presentation is attempting to help you resolve as a NetSuite client or a prospective client, understanding that this is the nature of the solution and that reporting is a key concept in maintaining the optimal solution that you're, you know, investing in by moving into the cloud. And so when it comes down to it, the NetSuite tool set that we have, it can seem overwhelming. And a lot of times we have clients come to us with reporting requirements, and there's a lot of jargon and there's a lot of different opportunities and tool sets, and it clouds the conversation. And it makes requirements gathering difficult, and it is harder for NetSuite clients to engineer a business intelligence structure that is complementary to their business. A lot of times people want, you know, a best-in-class solution, and the idea of NetSuite is the best-in-class solution is specific to your individual serialized business. You know, that is the beauty of it. So when we look at the tool set, let's just sort of talk through what all is available. And we'll start with the dashboard content, which is up in the top right corner. Dashboards in NetSuite are one of the most elusive elements of business intelligence and one of the most frequently criticized from customers' perspective. before. And so underneath the dashboard content, I put some notes of some particular elements that are specific and germane to dashboards. So KPIs, meters and scorecards, and custom KPIs. And I included some Suite answer IDs if you're interested in some follow-ups that are pretty foundational to each of these arenas where they, I thought it was appropriate. But KPIs, tiles, charts and graphs, reminders, and navigation shortcuts are all stuff that is pretty straightforward in the realm of dashboard content. But it's important to note that every other thing on here with regards to reporting, with the exception of the SuiteAnalytics Connect, have a place in dashboards. Save searches, analytics workbooks, financial and regular reports all can serve as introductory portal to NetSuite Business Intelligence and the onslaught of everything it has to offer all at once. And it's important to remember that, and remember that dashboard requirements can be resolved in basically every layer of the business intelligence that you have. And so, just having somebody say something that ought to be on a dashboard does not limit you to a KPI that exists. And so conceptually, that's something that we often find pre-existing clients having. The next thing to discuss here is save searches, affectionately sort of the yolk of this egg. And the reason it's there, I'm sure that existing NetSuite users can attest to this. It is the foundational kind of element of the NetSuite Business Intelligence platform. Save searches feed everything from workflows to custom development to notification emails whenever an approval came up for you. There's no element of configuration in NetSuite that does not heavily rely on save searches. And it's certainly, if you're just a new NetSuite user or considering NetSuite or going through an implementation, whatever, in those introductory phases, it is something to try and gain mastery of because it unlocks so much in the reports. And reports are also extremely valuable, but oftentimes less configurable than clients anticipate. So reports, and any report that exists, can be customized and have filters added and fields added, and even formula fields and that type of thing. But there are definitely limitations with regards to the types of information that you can access and how information is accessed. An important limitation is, that I'll mention to report on NetSuite budgets without writing a report in the NetSuite Financial Report Writer. They're not, you can do it in SuiteAnalytics Connect, but it is very difficult in the Save Search or Analytics workbook layer to include budgetary information simply because of the structure of those records alongside the GL and NetSuite. So the report writer and financial report writer, generally where clients see the most value is making sure they're intimately familiar with the baseline reports and working to customize them to achieve their specific views, but not necessarily creating custom report specifications. It comes up often, but 75, 80% of the time, most clients are just customizing existing reports to view it by department or whatever it is that they want to see as a dimension added to the report. Analytics Workbook is a good example of how the platform continues to increase its value to clients. And so Analytics Workbook, I believe it was a 2018.2 release, but it is recent. It's within the last couple of years here that this was added to the platform. It's a feature you need to enable if you've not done so already. And once you do so, it is a full sort of pivot table style application set that exists inside of NetSuite. And another great example of the cloud solution value gap, because it allows you to solve problems that previously it was either very difficult or impossible to solve inside of the existing technology. And we'll look at one that has to do with history for a conversion later on in the presentation. And last but not least, you've got the opportunity and availability of the SuiteAnalytics Connect driver, which is an ODBC driver that is a read-only access to NetSuite that derives its access from role permissions that it leverages. And an interesting, so a couple notes first on that. That is a licensed additional feature. And so if it's something that you're interested in as a existing or a new NetSuite user, you will have to discuss it with your account rep to learn what the pricing is appropriate to your account and that type of thing. Organizations use this a lot of times for data warehousing, third-party ad hoc reporting tools, complex reporting requirements, and also, to develop payloads and things like that for external and integrated applications. So this layer is a more database-centric layer that you can access. And so, for instance, if you're the type of NetSuite instance that is huge and has massive transactional volume and you're finding saved searches or timing out and that type of thing, you may want to move to a SuiteAnalytics Connect mechanism where you're, exporting SQL, records out of SQL directly. So altogether, you can summarize the tools that are available to you here. This slide sort of tool set that is labeled here. Now, having said that, let me preface that with the observation of the following. It is oftentimes that clients will come to us with reporting requirements that require additional customization to achieve. And so there are instances where fields may need to be added and scripting may need to be included to update those fields, et cetera, in order to achieve a particular requirement. So this is not a solution guide set necessarily. This right here is simply the tool set that underlines the reporting elements of solutioning. Now, customization, that's a whole different administrative duty and task. I'm sure you guys are aware of the customization layer. Just know that, there are requirements sometimes that require additional customization prior to moving into the reporting tool set. And that's a more complex and advanced thing that I would advise you to, make sure you're working with like a partner or, somebody that is a NetSuite certified, individual in order to achieve those types of results. So let's look at an overall sort of overriding process review that we could leverage potentially whenever this stuff comes up. And this is my affectionately titled Report Spider. It is a mechanism that I've used in training to talk through our consultants and solution personnel how to determine where and how to achieve something. And this is not a complete end-all be-all, but it's certainly valuable. So for instance, let's see, Well, let's just start at a high level and sort of work on our way from the top down. We'll start at the very top. Does a report exist I can customize? And this should always be our first stop, because anytime NetSuite extends additional functionality, it extends some core reports that are usually very valuable. And in many cases, NetSuite reports are achieving elements of data presentation that are very complex, that you would not be easily achieve without that report, wrapping it up in that way. And so make sure that you, especially if you're a system administrator, are intimately familiar with the reports that are available to you across the spectrum of your instance, and they're available in the Classic Center in the reports menu to just review. Go through them and make sure you know them. But that's a first stop. And if there is something there, then you should customize it. If it's for a dashboard, as you know, like I noted before, it could go any direction but ODBC. So technically there should be a line off there to analytics worksheet, but this thing was getting cluttered. But it's also something that you should be aware of. So whenever somebody's asking you for specifically for dashboard content, know that specific request is really a very generalized request. With the saying, can you get this resolved in any of the reporting layer, and then allow me to either present it to me by deploying it to my dashboard, or allow me to customize my dashboard to achieve that. And so, there's KPIs, which we haven't gone through in a great detail. We will a little bit later when we get into some of the details, but save searches, reports, KPIs, and worksheets, they're all available at this layer. And as well, dashboards have tiles, custom dashboard content, a myriad of different ways to present information to business users. And ultimately, as a NetSuite, if you're an administrator or internal champion, dashboards are a fundamental element of how your business values the system. It's the first thing they see when they log in, when they refresh it. If it gives them actionable information, they tend to like NetSuite better. Let's move around to the left of the top over there to email notification. As I'm sure you're aware, but maybe if you're not, reports and save searches are both mechanisms that allow you to send emails out in NetSuite based on schedules. In the case of save searches, you'll see that distinct record information, based on a record update to the left. So if you want an email notification, and if you want it to be sent if a record's updated, you want to work with a save search. And that's kind of a good use case example for how this process flow tool can be utilized. As well, email notifications can be scheduled off of reports, but they can't be scheduled based on record update kind of details. So yeah, that's something that would take you outside of a report writer. As well, you can set up reminders, which are an element of a dashboard, but you can set those up based on record updates as well. Distinct record information, and that's, I'm looking for transactional details, whether summarized or in detail as is. Generally speaking, you're going to want to work in the save search or ODBC layer. You can certainly drill down from a report into an individual invoice and this and that, but generally speaking, the tool set is going to allow for a lot more capability whenever you're at the save search level, and if you really need to dig deep in ODBC. Formula fields, a lot of people say, well, in reports I can put in formula. Yeah, they're very restrictive as compared to being able to submit, case statements in a formula field in a save search result. If you have complex formula requirements, generally speaking, again, you want to be in the save search or ODBC layer to achieve that kind of stuff. If you require SQL, which is to say, you know, you have conditional statements, you need to decode information, you know, there's groupings or things that you need to parse or achieve that you can't in the normal NetSuite Save Search kind of stuff. You know, the analytics worksheet, the Save Search or the ODBC is the only layer that you're really going to be able to achieve those kinds of requirements. And so, you know, if you know that you're going to have conditional record sets, you might as well just start there because it's going to be very difficult to achieve that kind of stuff in a report writer. More than 3 joins, let's save that for last because I want to just sort of walk through the joins as a concept in NetSuite to help people evaluate that because you may have heard that before and not be totally familiar with what it means. But record comparisons are time breaks. This one is a very interesting one and a good use case that we're going to bring up later. But let's say you have a different transaction record that you used over time. You know, it used to be cash sales, but now it's invoices or something like that. And you need to create reports that acknowledge that change or, you know, that comparison. Then analytics worksheet, which is again a new tool, or ODBC, these that heretofore you were not afforded within the reporting layer. And then lastly, there's just this more than 3 joins required. And so let me kind of step out into NetSuite. So Brittany, can you confirm that you're seeing NetSuite now? Sorry, just want to make sure.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, excellent. So we're looking into some a basic Save Search result, and this is just to try and enforce the concept of how joins present themselves in NetSuite. And so this Save Search is looking at invoices, and in this first column we see the lead source for an invoice. And so this is the direct lead source that was referenced on the record, and so if we went to this invoice, we'd see the lead source reference right there. And so no join necessary. However, if we were to edit this search, we would see this created from lead source. And the way that we identified this field was in our Save Search results. It came from the ... fields. And these ... fields, if you've never been sort of privy to, these are instances where a join is being indicated in the Save Search. So this Save Search is on a transaction record, specifically an invoice record. This created from fields ... is indicative of the transaction that created that invoice. So in this case, our invoice was, created from this sales order 293. So these created from fields are referencing the details from that sales order that created this transaction. And so we can get a lot of detail here. And in this case, I said, well, pull back the created from lead source. And so back here in my Save Search results, again, we saw this instance where this invoice had a direct lead source specified. Now let's take a look at this invoice 112. In this case, this invoice did not have a lead source specified on it. As you'll see, our results are blank here. However, it's created from transaction did. And if we dig down into this sales order, we will see that it does indeed have a lead source. And so that's the lead source we saw pulled back. And so that's how a single join can be created in a basic transaction inquiry search. So that's basic stuff, but important to just understand. Now, back here, inside of this original transaction, we actually can go a level deeper into our lead source fields to say, hey, I want to figure out, what channel or whatever this lead source was associated with. Now, the issue that we have is from a saved search, if I wanted to go to that created from and look at my lead source, I don't have the capability to make a subsequent join. There's no ... field out here. So while on my original record, I did have the ability to go out there and say, hey, based on the lead that somebody specified on this thing, pull back the channel. In the linked record, the joined record, I do not have that capability. And so that is a limitation that occurs inside of the NetSuite Save Search layer. The importance of that is, if I go back to my slideshow, current slide, I'm gonna have to switch this again. My apologies. It creates a requirement where if you know offhand that you need to get more than 3 joins deep, and this is something that occurs with time, but it's not something that is, this is very attainable for NetSuite embeds and SMEs and super users. Once you get accustomed to this, you will know that if you have a reporting requirement that needs to dig deeper than this in order to achieve what you're trying to achieve, you're going to be relegated to a worksheet or an ODBC enabled report. And so this is, again, something that you can use as a baseline to start decoding a requirement to say, where is this most likely going to land? And no 2 requirements are the same, but it's certainly a good resource if you're lost to help you sort of reacclimate. And our consultants have found it useful to sort of quickly assess potentially a new reporting requirement that's in an area of NetSuite that they're not familiar with or something like that. It's just a handy kind of reference. So let's look at some reporting examples inside of NetSuite and just talk about some of those concepts and why certain elements of the BI present more attractive solutions than others. And so right now I am showing you a basic balance sheet. This is meant really as just the fundamental baseline layer of NetSuite. This is out of the box. Any organization will have this as an element of their core financials. And you can see in the bottom here a lot of the great detail that NetSuite provides you by nature of just how it's set up. The accounting segmentation means that I can drive this report based on department or class or location for any of these accounts and balances for whatever periods I'm looking at. I can customize this to add any number of dimensions and include those dimensions as column headings. So for instance, I could split this out and see, by department, the contributions to each of these object accounts for this time period, et cetera. And so this is generally something that you would have seen in your normal sales cycle. And it's just important to understand how this works as a baseline and to understand, okay, I can schedule this to send to a recipient list or group. I can print it. I can export it as an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF. But my limitations here are it's not dynamic. It's not going to be sent based on an update, and it is a point in time set of details that is potentially malleable. And so especially where financial reporting is concerned, if it's not in a locked period, I know that this is a moving target. And so, it's the baseline. And again, from your perspective as a NetSuite client, user, SME, whatever you are, it should be your first stop for any requirement. Is there a report out there that has similar information, and how can I customize that? I'd encourage you, though, to consider this, first stop, and make sure that you've exhausted reporting prior to move on. Now, this Save Search example, the one I'm putting up, this is a little one that I created to look at personnel's time entry. So, for instance, this one that I'm showing, that it's a display from a dashboard that looks at the prior month and just says how many hours per day this resource has entered time for. And so it's a quick, look, and it looks like you got a couple 4-hour days, blah, blah, blah. We're not up to what we expect for your monthly total, et cetera. The idea here, though, is a lot of people are not aware that you can use Save Searches to fundamentally alter the display of data. So this is creating sort of a visual display for users. And down below, you can take a little screenshot, whatever. It's got details of how this was built using conditional case statements to create a sort of complex formula to associate time entries with the day of the week and then the day in the month. And so it's a nice little example of something that is available at the higher end spectrum of how you use Save Searches. And also note, this does require a little bit of an IT skill set, because you need to get in there and learn how to utilize the SQL statements inside of NetSuite. And you can do your Suite Answers search for SQL and uncover the So it requires you to understand some basic SQL kind of concepts. Where you'll need that baseline skill set to really excel at this next layer, or you'll need to identify it in the marketplace. And there's a lot of capability out there, in producing high quality results here. But that this is how a Save Search can be used, and an example of more of a high-end way to present the results from a Save Search. And then the last one, this is a very interesting use case example, because a fundamental requirement use case that we hear is, all right, when we were brought over into NetSuite, we were told not to bring our history. And there's a good reason for that, and we're not going to open that Pandora's box. But what we did was we brought over our history as sales orders that were closed. So we had some basic details of customer orders and et cetera, but we could create this history and not have any GL impact and start fresh in our NetSuite instance on the day we started transacting. And the issue that creates for clients who embrace that is that the end-over-end reporting that they were anticipating getting out of the box is just not fundamentally there. Because closed sales orders never hit the GL, and invoices were never created, and blah blah blah. It just that data set doesn't present itself in the canned vanilla reporting for revenue, and so this analytics workbook example gives you a show that on the criteria tab of the data set, for this particular workbook, and this is one particular chart that came out of that workbook. We created a conditional which said, hey, you know what? Before such and such date, all we care about is the total on the and invoices, which is much that, you know, this is in keeping with the NetSuite definition of what revenue is, and this is in the sales order history is in keeping with the sort of our data transformation requirements and how that you know, visualizes data. And so this is a good example of you know, an instance where the analytics workbook provides a very powerful you know, the analytics workbook. It is its own tool set and essentially application inside of NetSuite. And there's a ton of stuff out there, both within NetSuite Suite Answers and also YouTube that you can check out to get brushed up on it. But know that you know, this data visualization, sort of pivoting of data and looking at it for comparisons between different ranges, that is where the analytics workbook really excels. And then last but not least, you know, your KPIs. And so, you know, this example that I have on the screen is an example of, let's say, like a controller style KPI portlet dashboard content that anticipates seeing. And it's a good example because one, it's, you know, it's slightly universal. You know, controllers care about payables and receivables, and you know, what we got outstanding and what we anticipate, you know, revenue versus last period or whatever. And it's got actionable graphs, but it also is kind of showing the uniqueness of NetSuite in that you look at it and it's, you know, configure. Payables and receivables, I'm looking at today versus the last month. Expenses and bank balance, it's by period. You know, work orders, I'm looking by month. So you can kind of see that, you know, you can set this up and, you know, you can take whatever NetSuite gives you, but real mastery comes with understanding your business and, you know, trend. Is this something I look at periodically, you know, weekly, or by period or by quarter? Do I need to compare it to last year or last week? Yeah, that all that kind of stuff comes into play and is an element of how you configure this. Not to mention your ability to build custom KPIs, which is another layer, which is more of an XML tagging style of building formulas. Again, on some of the SQL stuff in saved searches and custom KPIs, that's definitely something where there is a skill set that needs to be acquired to achieve those results. And so if you find that you have requirements there and don't necessarily have the skill set internally to manage that, you know, that's where you may want to take a look externally to see what you can, you know, to just get it done in the most efficient and effective way possible. But yeah, that sort of wraps up the main layers of reporting and some ways that you can address how to choose what reporting layer you want to apply. Now let's take some time and open it up to questions. Is anybody on the call? And Brittany, people may have been chatting you some. I don't realize. But do we have any questions out there that I could answer for folks?
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to cover a few things, and then we'll go over the questions that we have.
Okay.
I'm going to change a presenter over to me now.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Sean. Now I'd like to cover a few follow-up items and move on to our question and answer section. Our webcast today is part of GSI's free ongoing educational webcast series on NetSuite. Our upcoming webcasts are listed on the screen. To view our most up-to-date schedule, please visit getgsi.com/netsuite/webcast. Check out our ERP Talk, which is a problem-solving forum where you can get your NetSuite and other enterprise application questions answered. Stay connected with us on social media. All of our handles are currently listed on the screen. You can see our most up-to-date posts on webcast, events, industry insights, and so much more. GSI provides extensive free educational resources for the NetSuite community, including our weekly educational webcasts, monthly newsletter called GSI Insider, online resource center where you can get If you would like to sign up for our weekly email reminders for upcoming webcasts, our monthly newsletter, or create an account to access our resource center, go to getgsi.com, go to resources and events on the main menu, select NetSuite on the right. All right, well, we do have a couple of questions that have come in. If you would like to still submit questions, you can in the pane on the GoToWebinar console window on the right-hand side of your screen. So our first question, Sean, is from Dan. How do I know when to use the financial report writer versus regular?
Yes, so that's a common question. There is the formatting elements, adding columns to the financial report writer, and being able to edit those columns, etc. But primarily, the key way to determine if you have a financial report is if the baseline information that you're looking at is specific to the GL or account on the GL. If you're looking more at transactional details, etc., that is not a financial report. It's the financial reports at their baseline are always going to be chart of account and specific, the account that activity was associated to.
Okay, great. And our next question is from Tom. What are some of the best practices to optimize safe searches that are timing out?
Another sort of common issue, especially for organizations as they grow and gain more transactional volume. So there's a few things. NetSuite actually has a help article on this with some basic stock answers. I will tell you the following observations we've come up with in terms of what we see for clients. One, absolutely, you're going to have to employ a date range in your core criteria, and that is going to be one of the fundamental drivers. The criteria that you include, and the more criteria you can that are body fields specific to the information that you're looking at that's timing out, the better off your results are going to be. And so I really encourage people to, if they have gotten into a corner where save searches that are really meaningful are timing out, to look at body information and see what they can do to filter out results. And beyond type and transaction type and all that stuff, I'm talking about, just details, salesperson, whatever it can be, to really diminish the amount of records NetSuite needs to consider. And then the last bet is, if you are continuously having timeout issues, it may be time to talk to your NetSuite rep about tiering, because you may have outgrown the instance and tier level that you are on. So those are some of the considerations if that's a problem that you're having.
Okay, we have one more question. And this one is from Ty. What are some use cases for the ODBC driver?
Yeah, so ODBC clients are generally folks, you see it that where they have a third-party business intelligence platform that is taking in data feeds from integrated applications. Clients will either use the Save Search API kind of payload to deliver the data details, or employ the ODBC connector. So data warehousing a lot of times, and reporting tools, data transformation and migration. And so if you have, I've seen organizations that would ODBC to create serial records in their NetSuite database, custom NetSuite serial records, where they would create it via a ODBC database and then upload it through NetSuite. So there's a whole host of requirements. Generally speaking, when you want to break the glass on ODBC is whenever you have a number of business reporting requirements that you cannot meet inside of the NetSuite toolset. Once you hit 2 or 3 core business requirements,
Okay, great. Thank you, Sean. That appears to be the end of the questions. Thank you, everyone, for your questions today, and thank you, Sean, for your presentation. As a follow-up from today's webcast, we ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey when you exit. You'll be receiving an email with a link to our resource center on our website, where you can access the recording from today's webcast as well as a copy of the presentation. After today's webcast, we will do the drawing for the $25 Amazon gift card. Anyone that attended the entire webcast will be eligible. We will notify the winner. If you have any follow-up questions, you can contact Sean or I, and we will get back to you. Our contact information is on the screen. Thank you again for attending our presentation, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.